Michael Carter had always been drawn to the hustle and bustle of big city life. It was no surprise that he chose to work in one of the busiest hospitals in New York City. As a skilled and ambitious surgeon, he thrived in the fast-paced environment where every day presented new challenges. His colleagues respected him, his superiors trusted him, and his patients were grateful for his skillful hands and compassionate nature. Despite his demanding job, Michael made time for his personal life, attending social events and mingling with friends. One rainy evening, Michael found himself at a charity gala organized by the hospital to raise funds for a new pediatric wing. The grand ballroom was filled with laughter and chatter, the soft strains of a jazz band playing in the background. Michael, dressed in a sharp black tuxedo, circulated the room with ease, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries with donors and colleagues alike. As he moved towards the bar to grab a drink, his eyes caught sight of a woman who seemed to stand out from the crowd. She had an air of grace and confidence about her, her auburn hair cascading in soft waves over her shoulders. She was talking animatedly with a group of guests, her laughter ringing out like a melody in the lively room. Michael couldn't help but be intrigued. Emily Hayes was relatively new to the city, having moved from a small town in Pennsylvania to pursue her dream of becoming a top-tier surgeon. She had recently joined the hospital staff and was still adjusting to the city's relentless pace. Despite the challenges, Emily was determined to make her mark and prove herself in the highly competitive field of medicine. The charity gala was her first major social event since her move, and she was eager to make connections and find her place among her new colleagues. As she conversed with other attendees, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She wanted to make a good impression and show that she belonged in this world of high achievers. Michael approached the bar, his eyes never leaving Emily. He ordered a glass of red wine, his mind racing with thoughts of how to introduce himself. He prided himself on his ability to make a strong first impression, but something about Emily made him feel unusually hesitant. There was a magnetic quality to her, a warmth and genuineness that seemed to draw people in. As Emily excused herself from her group to get a drink, she found herself standing next to Michael. She glanced at him, offering a polite smile, and he took the opportunity to strike up a conversation. They exchanged pleasantries, discussing their work and the importance of the new pediatric wing. Michael was immediately impressed by Emily's passion for her profession and her genuine desire to help others. There was an earnestness in her eyes that resonated with him deeply. Throughout the evening, Michael and Emily found themselves gravitating towards each other, their conversations flowing effortlessly. They shared stories about their medical journeys, their hopes for the future, and their experiences adjusting to life in the city. Michael felt a connection he hadn't experienced in years, and he sensed that Emily felt the same. As the night drew to a close, Michael knew he wanted to see Emily again. He suggested they meet for coffee sometime, and she readily agreed. They exchanged numbers, both feeling a flutter of excitement at the prospect of getting to know each other better. Their first coffee date took place at a quaint little cafe near the hospital. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air as they sat by the window, watching the city's bustling streets outside. Michael couldn't help but be captivated by Emily's stories of her childhood in Pennsylvania and the journey that had brought her to New York. She spoke with such enthusiasm and sincerity that Michael found himself hanging on her every word. As their coffee dates turned into dinners and their conversations grew deeper, Michael and Emily realized they had much more in common than just their profession. They shared similar values, a love for adventure, and a mutual respect for each other's dedication to their work. Michael admired Emily's tenacity and her unwavering commitment to her patients, while Emily was drawn to Michael's intelligence and his ability to remain calm under pressure. Their relationship blossomed over the following months, and they became inseparable. They found solace in each other's company, a refuge from the relentless demands of their jobs. Michael and Emily made time for each other despite their busy schedules, often meeting for late-night dinners or weekend getaways to escape the city's chaos. One memorable weekend, they decided to drive upstate to a small cabin Michael had rented. It was a chance to leave behind the noise and stress of their daily lives and reconnect with nature. The cabin was nestled in the woods, surrounded by towering trees and the tranquil sounds of a nearby stream. They spent their days hiking through the forest, exploring hidden trails, and breathing in the crisp, fresh air. In the evenings, they would sit by the fireplace, wrapped in blankets, sharing their dreams and aspirations. Michael felt a profound sense of peace during these moments, knowing that he had found someone who understood him on a deeper level. Emily, too, felt an overwhelming sense of contentment, grateful to have Michael by her side. Their relationship continued to flourish, and soon they found themselves facing new challenges together. The hospital was undergoing significant changes, and the pressures of their jobs increased. Michael and Emily leaned on each other for support, their bond growing stronger with each obstacle they overcame. They learned to balance their demanding careers with their personal lives, always making time for each other no matter how hectic things became. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at the hospital, Michael decided to surprise Emily with a special dinner at her favorite restaurant. He wanted to remind her how much she meant to him and how grateful he was to have her in his life. As they sat across from each other, the flickering candlelight casting a warm glow on their faces, Michael felt a surge of emotion. He reached across the table, taking Emily's hand in his. He told her how much he loved her, how she had brought joy and meaning into his life. Emily's eyes filled with tears as she listened, her heart swelling with love for the man who had become her rock. Michael then pulled out a small velvet box from his pocket and, with a trembling hand, opened it to reveal a beautiful diamond ring. Emily gasped, her eyes widening in surprise and delight. Michael asked her to marry him, his voice filled with emotion. Emily's answer was immediate and heartfelt. She said yes, tears of happiness streaming down her cheeks. The entire restaurant erupted in applause, the other diners sharing in their joy. Their engagement marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. They continued to support each other through the ups and downs, their love growing deeper with each passing day. Michael and Emily knew they were destined to be together, their lives intertwined in a way that felt both magical and inevitable. As they planned their wedding, they reflected on the journey that had brought them together. From the chance meeting at the charity gala to their romantic getaways and shared dreams, they knew they had found something truly special. They were partners in every sense of the word, ready to face whatever the future held together. The day of their wedding was a celebration of their love and commitment. Friends and family gathered to witness their union, the ceremony filled with heartfelt vows and joyous tears. Michael and Emily stood before their loved ones, promising to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives. It was a beautiful day, filled with laughter, love, and the promise of a bright future. As they danced the night away, surrounded by those who mattered most, Michael and Emily knew they had found their happily ever after. They were ready to face the world together, hand in hand, their hearts full of love and hope. Their journey together was just beginning, and they looked forward to a lifetime of shared adventures and cherished memories. Michael and Emily knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, their love unwavering and their bond unbreakable. Dr. Emily Carter's morning had begun like any other, but as she hurried through the rain-soaked streets, she felt a nagging sense of unease. The sky was a dull gray, mirroring her mood as she navigated the traffic, hoping to make it to the hospital on time. It wasn't until she was halfway there that she realized her mistake. Her keys, she had left them on the kitchen counter. Frustration bubbled up inside her as she turned the car around. She couldn't afford this delay, not today, when every second counted. As she sped back home, she silently cursed her forgetfulness. The dreary weather seemed to mock her, each raindrop a reminder of the inconvenience she now faced. Little did she know, this small lapse would set off a chain of events that would change her life forever. Emily's fingers trembled as she pushed the front door further open, the creak of the hinges echoing in the stillness of the house. Her breath hitched, and she instinctively held it, ears straining to catch any sound that might hint at what awaited her inside. The dim light filtering through the drawn curtains cast long shadows across the floor, making the familiar surroundings seem alien and menacing. She took a hesitant step forward, her senses on high alert. The living room was exactly as she had left it that morning, with the throw pillows neatly arranged on the couch and her favorite blanket draped over the armrest. Yet, the eerie quietness gnawed at her nerves. She could feel the pulse of her heart in her ears, each beat loud and insistent. As she moved deeper into the house, the faint murmurs from the study grew clearer. Her mind raced with possibilities, each more alarming than the last. Who could be in there? And why? She had left the house locked. She was sure of it. The thought of an intruder sent a chill down her spine, but she couldn't ignore the familiar cadence of one of the voices. Emily approached the study door, which was slightly ajar like the front door had been. She pressed her back against the wall, inching closer to the opening, the voices becoming more distinct with each step. Her husband Michael's voice was unmistakable, but the other voice, female and unfamiliar, sent a jolt of fear through her. Hearing through the narrow gap, she could make out the figures within. Michael stood with his back to her, his posture tense, while the woman faced him, her expression serious and intent. Emily's heart pounded as she strained to hear their conversation. The words were muffled at first, but soon they became clear enough to comprehend. The woman's tone was cold and calculating, her words weaving a narrative that sounded like a nightmare. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she realized they were discussing her, plans that involved getting rid of her. Her mind reeled, struggling to process the betrayal and danger that loomed before her. Emily's fingers trembled against the cool plaster of the wall, her breath shallow and rapid as she strained to catch every word. Michael's voice, once a source of comfort and love, now sent shivers down her spine. The woman with him spoke in hushed, deliberate tones, her words dripping with malice. Each sentence they exchanged wove a web of conspiracy around Emily, making her feel trapped and desperate. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Michael, the man she had trusted with her life, was plotting against her with a stranger. Her mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of their conversation. They spoke of making her disappear, of ensuring she was no longer in their way. The coldness in their voices left no room for doubt. This was no mere argument or misunderstanding. This was premeditated, calculated, and deadly serious. Emily's heart pounded in her chest, a wild drumbeat of fear and adrenaline. She needed to get out, to escape before they realized she was there. Slowly, she backed away from the wall, her movements careful and deliberate. Each step felt like an eternity, the creaking floorboards threatening to betray her presence. She couldn't afford to make a sound. Her life depended on it. As she reached the front door, Emily paused, her hand hovering over the doorknob. A quick glance over her shoulder confirmed that Michael and the woman were still engrossed in their sinister conversation. Taking a deep breath, she turned the knob ever so slowly, praying it wouldn't squeak. The door opened with a soft click, and she slipped outside, the cool air hitting her like a splash of water. Her car was parked a few yards away, and Emily moved towards it with as much speed as she could muster without breaking into a run. Her shoes crunched on the gravel driveway, each step echoing in her ears like a gunshot. She fumbled with her keys, her fingers shaking so badly she nearly dropped them. Finally, she managed to unlock the car and slid into the driver's seat, her heart still racing. For a moment, she sat there, gripping the steering wheel with white-knuckled hands, her mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. She couldn't confront Michael now, not without proof. She needed to gather evidence, to find allies who could help her expose his plan. The thought of going back into that house, of pretending everything was normal, made her stomach turn, but she knew it was the only way. Emily started the car and drove away, her eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few seconds, half expecting to see Michael and the woman running after her. The road ahead was a blur, her mind too occupied with the enormity of what she'd just discovered. She needed a plan, a way to protect herself and uncover the full extent of Michael's betrayal. As she drove, Emily's thoughts turned to Dr. Susan Mitchell, her trusted colleague and friend. Susan was sharp, resourceful, and, most importantly, loyal. If anyone could help her navigate this nightmare, it was Susan. Emily's grip on the steering wheel tightened as a sense of determination began to replace her initial panic. She would not go down without a fight. By the time she reached the hospital, Emily had formulated a rough plan. She parked her car and hurried inside, her mind already rehearsing what she would say to Susan. The hospital's familiar bustle was a stark contrast to the chaos in her own life, but it also provided a strange sense of comfort. Here, she was Dr. Emily Carter, a respected surgeon and a problem solver. She could handle this. Emily found Susan in her office, going over patient charts. She knocked on the door and stepped inside, her heart pounding in her chest. Susan looked up, her face breaking into a warm smile that quickly faded when she saw Emily's expression. "Emily, what's wrong?" Susan asked, concern etched on her features. Emily closed the door behind her, taking a deep breath. "Susan, I need your help. It's Michael. He's planning something terrible, and I don't know who else to trust." Over the next hour, Emily recounted everything she'd overheard, her voice trembling with emotion. Susan listened intently, her expression growing more serious with each passing minute. When Emily finished, Susan leaned back in her chair, her mind clearly racing. "We need evidence," Susan said finally. "Something concrete that we can take to the authorities. If what you're saying is true, we need to act quickly." Emily nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude for her friend's unwavering support. "I was thinking of installing hidden cameras and recording devices around the house. I need to catch them in the act." Susan agreed, and together they started to formulate a detailed plan. They would gather the necessary equipment, and Emily would return home, pretending to be the oblivious wife while secretly collecting evidence. It was risky, but it was the only way to ensure her safety and bring Michael and his accomplice to justice. As they finalized their plan, Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't alone in this fight. With Susan by her side, she had a fighting chance. The road ahead was still fraught with danger, but Emily was determined to see it through. She would not let Michael's betrayal destroy her. She would expose the truth, no matter the cost. Over the next few days, Emily meticulously installed hidden cameras and recording devices around the house. Each night, under the guise of the oblivious wife, she would carefully position a new device in a strategic location. Her heart pounded with every click of the hidden camera, every wire she carefully tucked away, knowing that one wrong move could unravel her entire plan. She maintained her facade perfectly, greeting Michael with the same warmth and affection as always, never letting on that she was aware of his sinister plot. The house itself seemed to conspire with her, its familiar rooms and corners offering the perfect nooks for her surveillance tools. The living room, with its cozy furniture and family photos, now hid a tiny camera behind a vase. The kitchen, where she pretended to prepare meals with a smile, concealed a recording device within the cabinet. Even their bedroom, a place that once felt like a sanctuary, now held secrets in the form of a small camera tucked into the bookshelf. Emily knew she couldn't do this alone. She reached out to her trusted friend and colleague, Dr. Susan Mitchell. Susan had always been a pillar of strength and support in her life, and Emily knew she could count on her now more than ever. They met in a quiet corner of a nearby park, away from prying eyes and ears. With a heavy heart, Emily recounted the events of the past few days to Susan. She told her about the unlocked door, the ominous conversation she had overheard, and her desperate need to gather evidence. Susan listened intently, her face growing more serious with each passing moment. She didn't need convincing. She knew the gravity of the situation and the stakes involved. Susan agreed to help without hesitation. She had connections in the medical field and the tech industry, and she promised to use every resource at her disposal to assist Emily. They devised a plan to review the footage together, ensuring no detail was overlooked. Susan also provided Emily with additional high-tech equipment, including a sophisticated audio recorder that could capture even the faintest whispers. Back at home, Emily continued her covert operations. She set up the new devices, feeling a strange mix of empowerment and dread. Each night, she would retreat to the safety of her car, parked a few blocks away, and review the footage she had captured during the day. The recordings were chilling, revealing snippets of conversations between Michael and Vanessa that hinted at their dark alliance. They spoke in cryptic terms, but the underlying malevolence was unmistakable. Emily and Susan met regularly to go over the recordings. They spent hours analyzing the footage, piecing together the puzzle of Michael's illegal activities. The more they uncovered, the more horrifying the truth became. Michael was deeply enmeshed in a black market organ trafficking ring, using his position at the hospital to facilitate the illegal operations. Vanessa, the mysterious woman from the study, was his accomplice, coordinating the logistics and ensuring the smooth execution of their heinous plans. The evidence was damning. Emily and Susan compiled it meticulously, organizing every piece of information into a cohesive dossier. They knew that presenting their findings to the authorities would be a delicate process. They had to be thorough, leaving no room for doubt or misinterpretation. Every detail had to be perfect, every piece of evidence irrefutable. Emily's emotions were a whirlwind during this time. She felt a deep sense of betrayal, anger, and sadness, but also a fierce determination to see justice served. She couldn't allow Michael and Vanessa to continue their crimes unchallenged. Innocent lives were at stake, and she was the only one who could put an end to their evil machinations. As the days passed, Emily and Susan grew closer, their bond strengthened by the shared mission. Susan's unwavering support was a lifeline for Emily, giving her the courage to press on. They worked tirelessly, often late into the night, driven by the urgency of their task. One evening, as Emily reviewed the latest footage, she came across a conversation between Michael and Vanessa that sent chills down her spine. They were discussing their next move, planning another illegal operation that would put countless lives at risk. Emily knew she had to act quickly. She couldn't wait any longer. She contacted Susan, arranging an emergency meeting. Together, they compiled the evidence, organizing it meticulously to present to the authorities. They knew they had to be thorough, leaving no room for doubt. Every detail had to be perfect, every piece of evidence irrefutable. Emily and Susan reviewed the footage one last time, ensuring they hadn't missed anything. The weight of their responsibility hung heavy in the air, but they were resolute. They knew what they had to do, and they were ready to take the next step. With their evidence in hand, Emily and Susan were prepared to confront the authorities and expose Michael and Vanessa's dark secrets. The journey had been long and arduous, but they were driven by a sense of justice and the hope of a brighter future. The moment of truth was fast approaching, and Emily steeled herself for the battle ahead. Emily and Susan sat in the dimly lit room, the glow from the laptop casting eerie shadows on their faces. The small space was filled with an air of tension and dread as they went through the footage one more time. Each clip, each frame was a piece of a horrifying puzzle that revealed the dark underbelly of Michael's world. The hidden cameras had done their job well, capturing every clandestine meeting, every hushed conversation, every incriminating detail. The first clip showed Michael in his study, pacing back and forth, speaking in a low voice that dripped with malice. He was on the phone with Vanessa, discussing the logistics of their next operation. They spoke in code, but the context was clear. Another victim was about to be ensnared in their nefarious web. Clicking to the next video, Emily's hand trembled slightly. This one was even more damning. Michael was in the basement, a place Emily rarely ventured. He was examining what looked like medical equipment, surgical tools, coolers, and other items that sent a chill down her spine. Vanessa entered the frame, handing him a file with details about their next donor. The look of satisfaction on their faces was sickening. Susan's voice broke the silence, steady and composed. She had always been the rational one, the anchor in Emily's stormy sea of emotions. They had compiled every shred of evidence, cross-referencing timestamps, noting every word spoken, every action taken. There was no room for error. The stakes were too high. The final clip was the most heartbreaking. It showed a young woman, barely out of her teens, bound and unconscious in the basement. Michael and Vanessa were preparing her for the illegal surgery that would steal her organs and, most likely, her life. The sight of it burned into Emily's mind, fueling her resolve to see this through to the end. This was not just about her survival anymore. This was about justice for all the victims who had suffered at their hands. With their evidence compiled into a comprehensive dossier, Emily and Susan took a moment to gather their thoughts. They knew their next steps would be critical. They had to approach the authorities in a manner that left no room for doubt or dismissal. Every detail had to be perfect, every piece of evidence irrefutable. The weight of their responsibility was immense, but they were resolute. They had spent sleepless nights sifting through hours of footage, cross-referencing dates, matching faces to names. They had done everything in their power to ensure that the evidence they presented would lead to an undeniable conclusion. Michael and Vanessa's criminal empire had to be dismantled, and their victims were owed justice. Emily and Susan exchanged a determined look, their bond stronger than ever. They knew what they had to do, and they were ready to take the next step. The journey had been long and arduous, but they were driven by a sense of justice and the hope of a brighter future. The moment of truth was fast approaching, and Emily steeled herself for the battle ahead. They packed up the laptop and the files, their faces set with grim determination. They had an appointment with destiny, and there was no turning back now. Every second counted, and with each passing moment, the urgency of their mission intensified. The drive to the police station was a blur of thoughts and emotions. Emily's mind raced with countless scenarios, each one more daunting than the last. She knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she also knew that she could not rest until Michael and Vanessa were brought to justice. Their reign of terror had to end, and it had to end now. As they pulled into the parking lot of the police station, a sense of calm washed over Emily. She knew that the hardest part was yet to come, but she also knew that she was not alone. Susan was by her side, and together, they were a force to be reckoned with. Emily and Susan walked into the police station, their hearts pounding in unison as they approached the front desk. The sergeant on duty, a grizzled man with a stern face, looked up as they entered. Without a word, Emily handed over the neatly compiled dossier, the weight of their findings evident in her eyes. The sergeant's expression shifted from curiosity to shock as he skimmed through the documents and watched snippets of the video evidence. The authorities moved quickly. Emily and Susan were ushered into a private room where they met Detective Harris, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for tackling complex cases. He listened intently as they recounted the details of their discovery, his face growing more serious with each revelation. The gravity of the situation was clear, and he wasted no time in mobilizing his team. A task force was assembled, comprising detectives, forensic experts, and legal advisors. They pored over the evidence, cross-referencing it with known cases of missing persons and unexplained disappearances. The meticulous work that Emily and Susan had done paid off. The evidence was irrefutable. Each piece fit together perfectly, painting a damning picture of Michael and Vanessa's heinous activities. Emily and Susan were kept informed at every stage of the investigation. They spent hours in the police station, providing additional context and clarifying details as needed. The process was exhaustive, but their resolve never wavered. They knew that bringing Michael and Vanessa to justice required patience and precision. Meanwhile, back at home, Michael remained oblivious to the impending storm. He continued with his daily routines, unaware that his every move was being monitored. The hidden cameras captured more incriminating footage, each new piece of evidence further sealing his fate. Emily played her role perfectly, maintaining the facade of the dutiful wife while secretly assisting the investigation. The task force worked tirelessly, gathering intelligence and preparing for the operation that would bring Michael and Vanessa down. They identified key players in the organ trafficking ring, mapping out the network that extended far beyond what Emily had initially suspected. The scale of the operation was staggering, but it only strengthened their determination to see it dismantled. As the days passed, Emily and Susan grew closer to the detectives. They formed a tight-knit team, united by a common goal. Detective Harris, in particular, became a trusted ally. His calm demeanor and strategic mind provided a sense of stability in the chaos. He guided them through the complexities of the legal process, ensuring that every step was taken with precision. One evening, as Emily sat in the police station, reviewing the latest footage with Susan and Detective Harris, they received a breakthrough. A new recording captured Michael and Vanessa discussing an upcoming transaction, complete with dates and locations. It was the final piece they needed to launch their operation. The task force sprang into action, coordinating with law enforcement agencies to plan a series of simultaneous raids. The night before the operation, Emily found herself alone in her car, parked outside the police station. She stared at the building, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. The journey had been long and arduous, but the end was finally in sight. She thought about the victims, the lives that had been shattered by Michael and Vanessa's actions. She thought about her own life, the betrayal and the fear, and the strength it had taken to reach this point. The following morning, the task force moved with military precision. Teams were deployed to key locations, ready to strike at the heart of the organ trafficking ring. Emily and Susan watched from the command center, their hearts pounding as the operation unfolded. The tension in the room was palpable, every second stretching into an eternity. The first reports came in. Raids were successful, arrests were made, and victims were rescued. Emily felt a surge of relief, but the final confrontation with Michael and Vanessa was still to come. The task force had tracked them to a secluded house on the outskirts of the city, a place that had served as their base of operations. Detective Harris led the team that would take down Michael and Vanessa. Emily and Susan remained at the command center, their eyes glued to the screens displaying live feeds from the raid. The house was surrounded, and the team moved in with practiced efficiency. They breached the doors, sweeping through the rooms with weapons drawn. Michael and Vanessa were caught off guard. The shock on their faces was evident as they were handcuffed and led out of the house. Emily watched with a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. The man she had once loved was now a criminal, exposed for the monster he truly was. Vanessa, the cold and calculating accomplice, was equally defiant, her eyes filled with malice as she was taken into custody. The operation was a resounding success. The organ trafficking ring was dismantled, its leaders apprehended, and its victims freed. Emily and Susan were hailed as heroes, their bravery and determination instrumental in bringing the criminals to justice. The media picked up the story, and soon the whole city knew of their courage. In the days that followed, Emily found herself in a whirlwind of emotions. The relief of knowing Michael and Vanessa were behind bars was tempered by the painful realization of the life she had lost. She spent hours with Susan, reflecting on the past and planning for the future. The hospital offered her time off, recognizing the trauma she had endured, but Emily chose to return to work. She needed the stability and sense of purpose that her job provided. Susan remained a constant presence in her life, their bond strengthened by the ordeal they had shared. They continued to work together, supporting each other through the healing process. Emily also sought therapy, understanding that she needed to confront the emotional scars left by Michael's betrayal. Emily found herself standing on the steps of the police station, the weight of the last few days lifting slightly from her shoulders. She and Susan had achieved the impossible, uncovering a sinister plot and bringing the perpetrators to justice. The early morning sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow on her face, a stark contrast to the dark storm that had clouded her life. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Emily allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. She had faced betrayal, danger, and heartache, but she had emerged stronger, a testament to her resilience. Life at the hospital returned to a semblance of normalcy. The familiar hustle and bustle of daily routines provided Emily with a comforting sense of structure. She threw herself into her work, determined to reclaim the parts of her life that had been overshadowed by Michael's treachery. Her colleagues, once just professional acquaintances, now rallied around her with unwavering support. They had always respected her as a surgeon, but now they admired her strength and courage as well. Emily's days were filled with surgeries, patient consultations, and the occasional media interview. The hospital administration, eager to distance itself from the scandal, promoted her to head of the surgical department. It was a recognition of her skills and leadership, a nod to her ability to guide the hospital through its darkest hours. With the promotion came increased responsibilities, but Emily welcomed the challenge. She had always thrived under pressure, and now more than ever, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The media frenzy surrounding the case was intense. Reporters hounded her for interviews, eager to capture the story of the brave doctor who had brought down an organ trafficking ring. Emily handled the attention with grace, always steering the conversation back to the importance of vigilance and integrity in the medical profession. She wanted the public to understand that while the hospital had been tainted by corruption, there were countless dedicated professionals working tirelessly to save lives. Despite the external chaos, Emily found solace in her work. Each surgery she performed was a reminder of why she had chosen this path in the first place. The intricate dance of medical precision and human compassion reignited her passion for medicine. She was determined to ensure that her patients received the best care possible, a stark contrast to the horrors she had uncovered. Every successful operation, every relieved family member, strengthened her resolve to move forward. The hospital underwent significant changes in the wake of the scandal. New policies and protocols were implemented to prevent any future abuses of power. Emily played a key role in these reforms, drawing on her recent experiences to ensure that the systems in place were robust and transparent. The staff, inspired by her leadership, embraced these changes wholeheartedly. The hospital's culture began to shift, prioritizing accountability and ethical practice above all else. As the weeks turned into months, the initial shock and intensity of the situation began to fade. Emily started to find a new rhythm in her life. She reconnected with old friends, made new ones, and even rekindled her relationship with her family. The support network she had once taken for granted became her lifeline. She realized that she didn't have to face her challenges alone. There were people who cared deeply for her and were willing to help her heal. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Emily found herself alone in her office. The familiar surroundings brought a sense of comfort, but also a pang of loneliness. She looked around at the framed certificates on the wall, the textbooks neatly arranged on the shelves, and the photo of her and Michael on their wedding day. That photo, once a cherished memory, now felt like a relic of a life that no longer existed. With a deep breath, she took it down, placing it in a drawer. It was a small act, but it symbolized her willingness to let go of the past and embrace the future. Her thoughts often drifted to Michael, the man she had once loved and trusted implicitly. The betrayal still stung, but she refused to let it define her. Instead, she focused on the positive aspects of her life, the things that brought her joy and fulfillment. Her relationship with Susan had deepened into a profound friendship, one forged in the crucible of adversity. They continued to meet regularly, supporting each other both professionally and personally. Emily also started to explore new interests outside of work. She took up running, finding that the physical exertion helped clear her mind and release the pent-up emotions she struggled with. The rhythmic pounding of her feet on the pavement became a form of meditation, a way to process the whirlwind of thoughts and feelings that still haunted her. She joined a local running club where she met people who shared her love for the sport. The camaraderie and shared goals provided a welcome distraction from the turmoil that had dominated her life. As her personal and professional life began to stabilize, Emily felt a growing sense of accomplishment. She had navigated through a nightmare and emerged stronger, more resilient, and more determined than ever. The hospital, once a place of turmoil and suspicion, now thrived under her leadership. The staff was united in their commitment to providing the highest quality care, and the community's trust was slowly being restored. In the quiet moments, Emily would often reflect on the journey she had undertaken. She had faced unimaginable challenges and had come out the other side with a renewed sense of purpose. Her experience had taught her the importance of vigilance, integrity, and the power of community. She had learned that even in the darkest times, there was always a way forward, a path to healing and redemption. Emily's story became a beacon of hope for many. She was invited to speak at conferences, sharing her experiences and the lessons she had learned. Her words resonated with audiences, inspiring them to confront their own challenges with courage and determination. She became a sought-after speaker, not just for her medical expertise, but for her ability to connect with people on a deeply human level. Through it all, Emily remained humble. She knew that she had been fortunate to have the support of friends like Susan, and she was deeply grateful for the opportunities she had been given. She continued to work tirelessly, not just to heal her own wounds, but to help others find their own paths to healing. The hospital, now free from Michael's corrupt influence, continued to thrive under new leadership. Emily found solace in her work and the support of her friends and colleagues. The media frenzy eventually died down, and life returned to a semblance of normalcy. But Emily knew that she had been forever changed by her experiences. She had faced her darkest fears and had emerged stronger, more resilient, and more determined to make a difference. As she stood in the hospital corridor, reflecting on the nightmare she had faced and the strength she had found within herself, Emily felt a deep sense of gratitude. She was ready to rebuild her life, committed to her profession and the importance of integrity. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but she was prepared to face whatever challenges came her way. With each passing day, Emily grew more confident in her ability to navigate the complexities of her new reality. She had learned valuable lessons about trust, resilience, and the power of community. She had faced her fears head-on and had come out stronger on the other side. Now, she was ready to embrace the future with hope and determination. As she walked through the hospital, greeting colleagues and patients with a warm smile, Emily felt a sense of peace. She had found her place in the world, a place where she could make a real difference. She had overcome immense challenges and had emerged stronger, more resilient, and more committed to her calling than ever before. Emily knew that there would always be challenges ahead, but she was prepared to face them with courage and determination. She had found her strength, her purpose, and her voice. And with that, she was ready to build a new beginning, one filled with hope, integrity, and a commitment to making the world a better place.